scab for the bosses, don't listen to their lies. Us poor folks haven't got a chance unless we organize. Which side are you
So,
on?
I had a dream last night that
Which side are you
I somehow won a dinner with George Bush Sr., but then he was being a dick and he wouldn't go on the dinner with me, and I just wanted to question him about where were you when Kennedy was shot, and what why do you suck so bad? And he wouldn't go on this dinner with me, so I went to whatever his fucking president office was, whatever the equivalent of that was in my dream, and I approached him, but then the apocalypse started happening, but with dinosaurs, and so then I walked outside. I was fuck, there's really fucking dinosaurs everywhere, so I had to fight all these dinosaurs, and then finally we made it through the small dinosaurs, and then we got outside of that, but then there was a giant T-Rex, and so then we had to deal with that. So moral of the story is I never got to have my my dinner.
Well, fuck that.
With HW.
Here, intro the podcast. I have to let Moonshine out of the room.
Moonshine, what do you want? Anyway, you guys, this is Remarks. And today we are bringing back our series that we started a couple episodes ago of Why You Should Hate.
Insert president's name.
Insert George H.W., who I had a dream about.
Or Richard Nixon.
Yeah. A lot of reasons to hate Nixon.
Oh.
So many reasons.
Yeah. No, I love a good hate sesh on Richard.
Oh
on
my
Dick
God.
Nix.
On Dickie Nix.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Phoebe.
I am Taylor, and this is Remarks.
The podcast.
The
podcast. I am for sure not returning from 3 days of festivaling and perhaps indulging in some fine
narcotics.
Not narcotics.
Some psychedelics.
Some substances.
Yeah.
That's not what's happening to me. Allegedly, and that's not why I am very tired, and maybe my brain's not actually working the way that it's supposed to.
Yeah.
But you know what? We're here. We're
here.
Doing good, and we're going to tell you why you should hate these fucking dudes.
True. And I also feel like it was kind of good that we took a week off after the mass shooting episodes, because those ones were for sure rough. I feel I felt very, not only was I doing the research on the mass shootings, but I was also reading the Bell Jar, and a week of all that, after a little bit, I was man, I'm so depressed. I'm so fucking sad, dude.
Oh my God.
I was I'm so sad. So I had to
I'm
stop
so
reading the
sad,
Bell
bro.
Jar, and I'm glad we took a week off.
Same, yeah. Sorry we forgot to. I was, again, pretty out of it because I've been gone every weekend this month. So I completely forgot to post an announcement on the Instagram. So sorry, everybody, but update.
I'm sure you probably figured
You noticed
it out.
we didn't post an episode last week. Phoebe was feeling under the weather, and I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't COVID. It wasn't, so we're good, but, didn't want to make my sweet Taylor sick. So.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
But we're back, and I hope that y'all had some time to, heal your hearts.
Exactly. Listen to some fun podcasts.
Yeah.
I didn't. I just listened to more Behind the Bastards.
Same,
To make me feel like shit even more, but as I do. But yeah, so we're talking about some prezes that we don't like,
and why you also shouldn't like them.
Why you shouldn't like them, because they're hot take, bad.
Whoa.
Presidents, not my favorite thing.
Okay, Taylor.
I know, it's
a
weird,
little bit, a little edgy,
a little out of pocket. One could say,
a little highbrow for this pod, but
me not liking leaders, it's crazy.
Never heard you say that before.
Exactly, yeah, it's weird. Anywho, I'm going to kick it off here with Richard Milhouse Nixon.
His middle name is Milhouse?
Milhouse, like the Simpsons character.
Fucking dork,
What a dork. He was born on January 9th, 1913 in Yorba Linda, California. Nixon has 4 brothers, Harold, Donald, Arthur, and Edward.
Hate all of that.
That's a whole lot of white people names.
Yeah.
They were raised in a Quaker household, so they abstained from alcohol, dancing, and swearing. like the good Christian people they were.
Dorks.
Fucking dorks. No dancing, no drinking, no swearing.
Sounds like a life I don't want to be living.
No, absolutely not.
That's all I did last weekend.
Exactly. You danced,
drink, and swear.
Swore, yeah. Said them cuss words as the...
Cuss words. I used to think the word cuss was a cuss.
Oh, shit.
And so I was, like, afraid to say, like, cuss word.
Yeah, well, you can't because it's a cuss.
It's a cuss.
I mean, yeah, for sure. His father was Frank Nixon, and his mother was Frances A. Nixon. And at first, the family ran a lemon ranch. So
I don't know why that's funny.
I don't know what. Also, like, I just feel weird calling it a ranch because ranch makes me think
ranch.
like animals, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like lemon farm would have made more sense.
They're like lassoing the lemons.
Yeah, like, yeehaw! When life gives you lemons, you lasso
You hurt them.
as they say. Until that failed in 1922, and they packed up their bags and moved to Whittier, California, and Frank opened a gas station and grocery store to support the family. Richard seemed to do well in school, getting good grades and being involved in sports as well as debate, although it is said that he was benched for most of his athletic career, but he was a good debater, as from what they said. Yeah, he like did a bunch of sports, but is like, I don't know, like in the articles I was reading, they were like kind of cheeky, just being like, he kind of sucked, actually.
I mean, me too. So
I mean, yeah, I'm not, no judgment. Not sports aren't everybody's thing, but
also you're a loser.
It's just funny that like why'd you do so many? You know, if you were like bad at
keep
it,
doing it.
Like he kept doing it. Yeah,
go at the academic route.
Richard graduated Whittier High School in 1930, third in his class of 207 kids.
Wow.
Which is like, I don't know, this is kind of a side thing, but it's weird to me that like classes have that small of people, because I know there's like some, like, there's even like some small town high schools that have like 200 people that graduate from like in the senior class, and I'm like, mine was like, I don't know, like 1,500 kids or some shit like that. Like, it's crazy.
For sure, like at least 1,000.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's crazy. I don't know.
I just feel like maybe there's like more people these days.
Maybe.
There's too many.
Way too many people.
Yeah.
Yeah, when like, I don't know, when like the earth, you know, reverts back to its like natural self, like after we all die, you know, like I'm like happy to be like, I'm like happy to go. Like I'll take one for the team and like get out of here for the earth, you know? He was offered a tuition grant to Harvard University, but with his brother Harold developing tuberculosis, good old tuberc, he decided to stay and attend Whittier College. He wasn't allowed into the one literary club at the college that was made for men, or like was a men's club, because he didn't come from a prestigious family. So he helped actually find a new club called the Orthogonian Society.
Okay.
I don't know what that fucking means.
Sounds dumb.
He again was a good student and did get engaged to Ola Florence Welch in 1933. However, they broke up in 1935.
Aww.
So short-lived there.
Sorry, Dickie.
Sorry, Dick. Probably a big bullet dodge for Ola, but...
Wow, yeah, for sure. She got out of that one unscathed.
Anyway, he graduated and then went off to Duke University School of Law on a scholarship because he graduated summa cum laude, which is a Latin phrase for graduating with a certain level of honors, but I really just included it because the word cum was in it.
Yeah, he came all over that
graduated.
Laud. All summer he was coming on that laud.
Exactly. Yep, that's why I had to put it in. After graduating from Duke, he first attempted to apply for the FBI and ruin people's lives that way.
Right.
But due to a last-minute budget cuts, they didn't call him back. So he decided to start practicing law in California and do commercial litigation for local petroleum companies and other corporate matters so that he could ruin people's lives in a different way.
Yeah. What a douche.
What a guy. He met his wife doing a Players production of The Dark Tower. And once they began dating, it's like a community theater thing.
Okay.
And once they began dating, she was reluctant to marry Richard, but eventually gave in. And they were married on June 21st, 1940.
Bro.
Like, that's how it describes it, is like, she was reluctant to marry him at first, but eventually she was like, all right, you won't leave me alone, and
yeah,
it's the
exactly.
1940s, so
I kind of got to do this.
I kind of got to do it. They had 2 daughters named Tricia and Julie. Richard and his family moved to Washington, D.C., and eventually he ended up joining the Navy and was stationed at a few places, but did eventually end up in Greenland, where his unit prepared flight manifests and plans and supervised the loading and unloading of transport aircraft. So whatever the fuck that means.
All right.
I have no idea. I don't know anything about the military. Not a military podcast here.
Yeah.
In 1946, when he left the Navy, a bunch of Republicans in California were upset that Jerry Voorhees, it kind of looks like Voorhees,
Jason?
like Jason, yeah, kept winning the 12th district in California, like as the governor. And they were looking for a candidate who could run a successful campaign against him. In comes our boy Dick. One of Nixon's campaign strategies was to contend that Voorhees was endorsed by a group that was linked to communists. And that
classic.
meant that Voorhees obviously must have the same radical views.
Yeah.
Nixon ended up winning the election,
Classic
surprisingly,
move.
because like whenever you need something, you're just like, hey, this guy over here is a communist.
Hey, this guy looks like some kind of communist.
Exactly. And then, you pretty much get whatever you want over that person.
He's like, hey, he was wearing like a red shirt the other day. That's like not sitting right with
True.
me.
They're like, damn, he like went into a barber shop and like there's like red in the pole. Like it's kind of crazy. Yeah. Yikes. It's giving communist for sure.
It's giving communist.
In June of 1947, Nixon supported the Taft-Hartley Act, which was a law that monitors the activities and power of labor unions. He aided on a few committees, one of which being the advisors who approved aid to be sent over to Europe in the wake of World War II. In early February of 1947, he joined the House Un-American Activities Committee, a.k.a. HUAC. Our boys, they go way back.
We know all about him.
He started to pal around with other right-wing nut jobs, and by May of 1948, he had co-sponsored a Munt-Nixon bill that would require all Communist Party members to register and required a statement of sources of all printed and broadcasted material issued by the organizations that were found to be communist fronts, quote unquote. Basically, if a news organization was found to be communist or even just like somewhat liberal or left, they had to state where they were finding all of their sources and any info that they put out. Like they had to like make sure they were. I guess the idea is like if they were like getting information from like Russian propaganda or whatever, they had to be like, oh, this is from this source to like make everybody know that like, oh, we're biased or whatever.
Right.
Which
source, look at the way poor people are treated.
Exactly. Source, have you seen the shit going on? Like exactly.
Source, look around, man.
Fucking use your eyes, man. Nixon found national attention in August of 1948 with his persistence in the Alger Hiss spy case. Basically what it was all about is Alger Hiss was accused of being a spy for the Soviet Union in the 1930s, but the statute of limitations on espionage had run their course, so they got him on a charge of perjury. Whittaker Chambers, an admitted ex-communist, accused Hiss of giving him top-secret papers called the Pumpkin Papers when he was testifying in front of HUAC.
Did you say the Pumpkin Papers?
That's what they called him.
Wow.
And they called them that because Hiss lied under oath that he had passed these papers, that he lied that he had given the papers, but then Chambers produced them. But the reason they're called the Pumpkin Papers was because Chambers, before going to HUAC with the papers, he hid them in a field of pumpkins, because in like a hollowed out pumpkin, because I guess he was worried that like he was gonna get like murdered and like or someone was gonna steal them or like I don't fucking know why, but yeah. So then they got like
American history is so crazy, dude. There's always shit like this that it's like, yeah, obviously, like, fucking the Vietnam War, crazy. But there's, like, shit like this where it's like, oh, yeah, this dude hid these fucking papers in a jack-o'-lantern. Like,
And
that
like,
you're just like, what the fuck is going on?
What happened? Yeah. It's fucking, I don't know. But yeah, so that's kind of the whole, like, he was really pushing to like bust Hiss on something. So yeah, that's kind of what happened there. Nixon ran for the United States Senate in 1949 and used another sneaky tactic against Democratic candidate Helen Gahagan Douglas. Yeah. Nixon released a document claiming that the voting record of Douglas, the person he was running against, closely matched the voting record of Vito Marcentaneo, who was a New York congressman suspected of being, say it with me, communist. Do you see where it's going?
Yep.
If her voting record was the same, then Douglas must also be a communist.
Of course.
Nixon won the election by nearly 20%, and he got his nickname Tricky Dick for his campaign tactics.
Bruh.
Sometimes things just like work, you know? Like sometimes like they're just like Richard Nixon being called Tricky Dick. It's like, I can't, like, the jokes write themselves.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Just insert any joke that you're thinking about, and it's like, that's the joke.
I got you,
like,
Tricky Dick right here.
Exactly. Tricky Dick, that's what they called me in high school, am I right? Like, you know, you can't, what they say, like, reality is better than fiction, or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. In the Senate, Nixon was a staunch anti-communist, of course, and was friendly with another anti-communist you may have heard of named Joseph McCarthy. He criticized how President Harry S. Truman was handling Vietnam, which, I mean, Harry S. Truman in Vietnam, you know.
Yeah.
And he actually did vote in favor of civil rights for minorities.
Shocking. And
federal relief for India and Yugoslavia. So, Richard Nixon is one of those interesting ones because, like, he's done some shit, and we'll get more into it, obviously. But, like, yeah, there's just, like, a few things that he's done where it's like, that was kind of a tight move, actually.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
Like, weird. Like, you hate everything, and you're a piece of shit, except for, like, this one, like, these few things you did. And it's like, oh, okay.
I was like,
which I guess is, like, most presidents, really, you
True.
know? But you know what isn't a piece of shit that will do a few good things.
You know, it is aight.
That's a better one. Sponsors, not podcasts.
These ads. Podcasts, too.
Podcasts are pretty aight.
Especially this podcast. I mean, we're a little more than aight.
I think we're pretty fucking dope nasty, actually.
True.
As the kids say.
Agreed.
For sure. Anyway. All right, we are backskis.
All right.
Backinator.
Backaroony.
Throw it back. Back that ass up, DeMarco.
Throw it back. Throw it back. All right. You know that?
Yeah, I think I'm familiar with it. I've heard it. Nixon became the vice president to Eisenhower in 1952.
Was he the Isley Hislers?
It's so true. So true.
So true, dude.
Biographer Erwin Gelman has this to say about his vice presidency. Eisenhower radically altered the role of his running mate by presenting him with critical assignments in both foreign and domestic affairs once he assumed his office. The vice president welcomed the president's initiatives and worked energetically to accomplish White House objectives. Because of the collaboration between these two leaders, Nixon deserves the title the first modern vice president. So, like, I guess before Nixon, vice presidents didn't really do shit.
Right.
Or, like, didn't do anything, like, important. But then, yeah, Eisenhower was like, nah, dog, you got to do some shit.
Gotta start pulling your weight around here.
Gotta pull your weight around here. In 1960, Nixon launched his first campaign for the presidency of his own. He was running against good old JFK, and was actually the first. This was actually the first presidency, election that had televised presidential debates for the public to watch.
Oh shit!
Kennedy won both Illinois and Texas, and there were charges of voter fraud being rumored around the the right, but Nixon didn't consider contesting the election for fear it would weaken the U.S.'s standing on the global stage to have a scandal like that, which, sounds kind of nice to, have presidents that were like, oh, maybe this isn't a good idea to think that there was a huge voting fraud scandal.
Let's not continue pushing that narrative.
Yeah, it would be nice, huh?
Would be nice. Although hilarious because it's like, well, Nixon, you want to talk about scandals.
You want to talk about scandals and fraud. You were you're like the president that's known for the crimes, you know, like you're the crime guy.
You're
like
Mr. Crime.
Yeah, Professor Crime, if you will, because you have a doctorate in crime. He ran against and won this time, or ran again and then won this time, and was inaugurated on January 20th, 1969. JFK doobie getting shot and shit. Back into the left,
He did kind of get pwned.
He fucking noob. He got pwned. Good stuff. Nixon would be the first president to visit communist-controlled China and was hoping to establish better relations with the country. The first signs of goodwill came when Mao Zedong invited a team of American table tennis players to China to play against their top ping-pongers. This was followed up by sending Nixon's national security advisor, Henry Kissinger, big fan, to China in February of 1972. Nixon and his wife would travel to China after receiving a 40-hour brief from Kissinger in preparation. So Kissinger talked to him for 40 hours, being like, this is what you gotta fucking do.
I don't want to listen to anybody talk for 40 hours, but especially not Henry Kissinger.
Definitely not fucking Henry Kissinger being like in his deep German accent. Like, oh, this is what we do. That was a little more Russian, but you know what I mean.
I got you.
When Nixon took office, about 300 U.S. soldiers were dying in Vietnam per week. Nixon didn't believe that the war could be won, so he wanted to end it quickly and get America out because of how unpopular the war was with the American public. I wonder why, being that there was 300 fucking people dying, U.S. soldiers dying a week.
And Nixon also, it was totally pointless and stupid.
Yeah, it was also dumb and shouldn't have existed. Nixon approved a secret B-52 bombing of North Vietnam and Khmer, through positions in Cambodia, and this whole operation was codenamed Operation Menu. Each phase of the bombing campaign was called a different type of food, so there was time of eating. So there was breakfast, lunch, dinner, and dessert were different parts of the bombing, which
Jesus Christ
seems gross.
All of these operation names, it's just I don't think you can name any of them. It's just always in poor taste.
Always. Especially
maybe don't name it at all.
Yeah, and especially because they're always fucking dorks, dude. They want it to be so... the person who came up with this, this fucking Operation Menu and then named it all this was this is so fucking funny. I'm so fucking clever. Hits, types it out and is all right, we're done for the day, boys. We did it. Yeah. Fucking stupid. While the numbers are disputed among experts, the areas that were bombed had, and this is a rough estimate, a non-combat population of about 4,200 civilians that were most likely affected negatively by the secret surprise bombings in Cambodia. And the numbers, that's just how many were confirmed, and they get real higher. We're going to talk about that later. But America pulled out of Vietnam in 1973-ish. And of course, by 1975, South Vietnam fell to the north. Nixon continued the JFK mission to perform covert operations in Cuba against Fidel Castro, our guy.
Our boy.
Although he would renew the agreement made with the Soviet Union during the Cuban Missile Crisis. A Marxist candidate won the election in Chile named Salvador Allende, and Nixon was not very stoked about a leftist taking office.
I wonder why.
It is alleged that Nixon personally authorized $700,000 in covert funds to print anti-Allende messages in a prominent Chilean newspaper. It was also alleged that he was attempting to get military personnel to do a coup, which is exactly what happened on 9/11 of 1973. Rough day. Allende was among those who were killed in the coup. So it is very possible that this coup was at least, I mean, it was definitely supported by Richard Nixon, if not, again, orchestrated in some way by him. Yeah. And also $700,000 to be like, this guy sucks.
Dude,
like,
right? Yeah, exactly.
It's fucking insane.
Okay, put a little ad in the newspaper about how this dude's a jerk.
Yeah, I mean, but everybody knows that, like, for a country that talks about, like, loving democracy, we really hate it when, like, democracy picks people that are sensible and on the left.
Yeah, isn't it crazy?
It's
so weird how
so
that
nice.
happens.
Yeah, I love it. Nixon was a late supporter of the conservation movement. He saw that voters were beginning to care more about the environment and wanted to cash in on some of that good PR. So in June of 1970, he created the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and he supported other legislation like the Clean Air Act of 1970 and helping OSHA gain more prominence in workplaces and corporate safety. So again, weird shit. Like,
yeah, like just a random, like, tight little thing that he did, and then like went back to being a total fucking.
And like, it's arguable too that it also sucks because I feel like, knowing who he is, like, he didn't do that because he actually cared about the environment. He did it because he, like, wanted goodwill, you know, like he wanted PR. Like, I don't know. It's just like, it's one of those things where it's like, it's a good thing that you did that, you know, like the EPA is potentially the, like, least problematic government agency, you know, maybe problematic in the sense that they, like, haven't really done too much, but like, but it's also one of those things where it's like, I know you only, like, you don't really care about any of these things. No,
he just did it because he was like, I need people to, like me.
It's the same shit as like it's cool that, like, corporations are pro LGBTQ plus for the month of June,
right?
But it's like, I know that they're not really. They just want people to, like, they just want to, like, again, PR so that people are like, wow, you know, fucking Disney likes gays, or, you know, Raytheon loves the gays. Amazon is so supportive. It's, you know, it's just one of those things where it's like, it's so disingenuous.
Yep.
Nixon also was concerned about the prevalence of domestic drug use, as well as drug use among Vietnam veterans, and he called for a war on drugs, and coined the popular phrase that would never be used in a negative way against minorities in the future at all.
No, for sure not.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, I mean, like, because if I'm correct, like, we did that, like, we beat drugs, right?
We did. We won the war. It's over. The drugs lost.
I don't even know what drugs are, because
I've never done one.
I've never done one, and, like, I mean, again, I just don't know what they are, because
don't even
they're
have a
gone.
Concept.
Yeah.
So
it's like
not
weird,
even like
weird word I'm seeing.
Ibuprofen.
I mean, who needs it, you know?
Yeah.
Because we've cured headaches too, right?
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Some scholars propose that Nixon slowed down his push for civil rights after becoming the president because in his 1960 election, he was very pro desegregation and passing civil rights legislation. But seeing how he had a large Southern conservative base, that he was attempting to not alienate those who, and like he was attempting to not alienate those people who disliked the civil rights movement, he slowed the policies down for a better chance of winning the election in 1972. So again, stand-up guy.
Yeah,
Love
right.
it.
It's like, so there you go.
That's it right
everything
there.
You do is just so that you can have power.
And I mean, arguably that's like all politicians, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you appeal to what's favorable at the time, because that's what's favorable at the time, you know?
Right.
Like, there's no way, like, any of these, like, politicians, like, if you know, for some reason or another, like, being gay became, like, taboo again, like, there's no way that all these politicians would, like, still stand up for it. The ones that
exactly.
Have, like, you know, your Joe Bidens and your Obamas and whatever. It's like, no, they definitely wouldn't. Like, it's that kind of shit. This brings us to the infamous Watergate scandal.
Delicious.
Delicious, yeah, true. Tasty.
Quenches my thirst for scandal.
Truly. I wonder, like, isn't a Watergate just a dam, technically?
I guess, yeah. I to be quite honest, I don't even know where the name comes from.
Well, it comes from, on June 17th, 1972, 2 police officers responded to a break-in at the Watergate Hotel, which was the headquarters of the Democratic National Committee. They found men attempting to connect surveillance devices to the phones of the offices to be used by the Democratic Party representatives. Reporters Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein would continue to uncover more and more about the scandal even after Nixon won the election of 1972. The 2 reporters were continuously fed leaks by an anonymous source known as Deep Throat. Did you not know that was the name?
Maybe, but I didn't. Bro.
Yeah, that was like the anonymous source's name. Because like it wasn't, and like no one fucking knew who it was for a long time.
It was Nancy Reagan.
I mean, she did have a deep throat. You're correct. She was the throat goat.
Bro, it's Tricky Dick and Deep Throat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It writes itself.
Okay. I see a fan fiction in our future.
Oh, I'll write it.
Okay.
But yeah, so Deep Throat's, the source, anonymous source Deep Throat, his identity wouldn't be made public until 30 years later when it came out that Deep Throat was FBI Deputy Director Mark Felt. So, yeah, nobody knew for a long-ass time.
Damn.
I guess now that... technical difficulties. There we go. We're back up. Now that like our faces are out there and I don't really care anymore.
True.
I have a song called The Watergate Scandal.
Oh, yeah.
You can stream.
Stream that bitch.
Taylor Lacey, baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mentioned like Deep Throat in the song. That's where it's
Taylor
from.
also likes
Deep Throating. Yeah. No, it's really nice.
It's really nice.
Fave activity. From the leaks, it was found that, and this is a quote, the direct involvement of Nixon intimates. I'm not sure. Yeah. In Watergate activities is what it found. Number 2, that the Watergate wiretapping and break-in had been financed through illegally laundered campaign contributions, and in a Blockbuster October 10th front page article. Number 3, that the Watergate bugging incident stemmed from a massive campaign of political spying and sabotage conducted on behalf of President Nixon's re-election and directed by officials of the White House's part of a basic strategy of the Nixon re-election effort. So, good stuff there, for sure.
Love that.
To make a long, complicated story shorter, Congress was mad and ordered there to be an investigation into the Nixon administration, and the public was outraged by all of the illegal activity that was coming to light in the Nixon administration. Judge Sirica, I believe is how you say the name, ordered Nixon to give up tapes of the Oval Office that contained conversations that would be crucial to the investigation. Nixon attempted to not give the tapes over and made deals with the judge to not have to give over the actual recordings, but written summaries of the tapes instead. And the judge was like, fuck you, no.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Bro.
We're going to let you just write out what... Like, this super happened, actually. Like, they came in and we said hi, and then he said that my hair looked really good, and I said, oh, that's... Thank you. And then we had tea. Like,
it was all kosher.
It was so kosher, yeah. Nixon eventually agreed to hand over the 9 tapes, but only handed over 7 of the tapes initially. He's really dragging his feet here. And on one of them, there was an 18.5-minute gap of time missing from the tape. About a year later, Nixon provided transcripts of the missing tapes, but he was already being impeached at that point, even without the remaining tapes and that 18-minute gap.
Mm-hmm.
On August 9th, 1974, Nixon resigned and left office because he realized he was fucked.
Yep.
I mean, it's just like what else? He knew what was going to fucking happen.
Yeah.
There's no way. The new president, Gerald Ford, gave Nixon a full pardon of all crimes once he took office.
Yep.
Because, of course, he did.
Yep. Because he's like, I'm about to do some crimes, so...
Yeah, I mean, he's like, oh, if we start, holding presidents accountable for their crimes...
Insert like Joe Biden quote.
Exactly, yeah, because it's love it. Love a president. Favorite thing.
It's really good that we have them. We totally don't have a series completely dedicated as to like why they're
actually
bad idea.
And all of them are literally scummy pieces of shit. After leaving office, Nixon wrote in this in a diary about him and his wife, Pat. So be it. We will see it through. We've had tough times before, and we can take the tougher ones that we will have to go through now. This is perhaps what we were made for, to be able to take punishment beyond what anyone in this office has ever before, particularly after leaving office. This is a test of character, and we must not fail the test. And I'm like, you did the crimes.
Yeah.
Like, why are you like...
You already failed.
I'm being persecuted. It's like, you did the crimes. You were the one that... And like, I think we've talked about this before, but Nixon was for sure, like, the drunkest president. Like, he was smashed all the time. Yeah.
24/7.
Zooted. Like, carbonated off his ass, you know? I like how you can take, like, any word and turn it into, like, being drunk.
Yeah.
Just by, like, making it a verb. Mm-hmm. Like... I got so microphoned the other day. It was crazy. Yeah. But anyway, so that's what he said in a diary entry. Nixon would stay busy throughout the 1980s, continuing to do speaking engagements and writing memoirs, the usual post-presidency rich guy stuff.
Yeah.
And at the time of his death, he was worth about $15 million.
Jesus Christ. And what's his memoir is like, his memoir is just like, barely legible, and also it was like I was like really good at being a president, like I was like fucking the best, and I never did anything wrong, good, and everyone was just like really mean to me for no reason, dude.
Like, I don't know why you guys are so mean. Like, I was just doing my best. I was actually really good at it, so don't be mean to me.
I made the EPA.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I feel like he for sure, like, he didn't write any of that. Like, someone else wrote down and he just, like, talked.
Yeah, and he was just like, so in 1965,
like, yeah. Now, Nixon suffered a stroke and died on April 22nd, 1994. He did actually go into a coma before that, and I'm sure it was painful, so that's at least some solace we can take in this. My little, like, summary of it all here. In a lot of ways, Richard Nixon started the trend of illegal criminal presidents and politicians we see.
Yeah.
The amount of fuckery that was done in other countries and the pure disregard for human lives of people of those other countries is apparent to see in Nixon's presidency. He is the shadiest president we've ever had.
Straight up.
Doing a search of the overall death tolls of the secret bombings and the wars in Cambodia and Laos, as well as continuing the Vietnam War after the peace talks had already been initiated for his own electoral gain. Mm-hmm. He's looking at a death toll of approximately 800,000, maybe 800 million, actually. Anyway, a lot of people. Like, one of the highest death, maybe 800,000 that, like, you can directly tie to Nixon. Which is, like, one of the highest death counts of any president that we've had. So,
yeah, solid.
Him and Henry Kissinger can fuck off, and I hope Henry Kissinger dies soon.
Yeah,
we don't need him.
That'll be a good day.
And the thing that's so frustrating about it is, like, you know, Henry Kissinger's fucking alive. He's old as shit. He has tons of money. Nixon was, like, worth $15 million when he died.
Yeah, like it's not like he ever really... He's acting like, oh, I was being persecuted. It's like, where?
You literally weren't.
Literally went. Like, you resigned before you had to deal with getting impeached. You got pardoned from your crimes. Like, what? What are you, like, so mad about, dude?
That's how... It's just, like... And that's the thing is, like, we could... You know, like, you could persecute Henry Kissinger for, like, war crimes, but at this point, like, the homie's, like, fucking in his 80s.
Right, like what's the point?
He's lived his life and gotten away with what he's done.
Exactly,
you know? Like,
exactly.
I mean, maybe, like, I don't think that, like, public shaming is wrong at any age if you're a piece of shit, but, like, but that's the thing, is it's, like...
Is he gonna give a shit, though?
Is he gonna give a shit, you know? It's, yeah. But, yeah, that's my section.
Fuck yeah.
Before we jump into it, Phoebe, would you like to take a break?
Let's do it. Let's take a little chill time.
A little breather, if you will.
Yeah.
For sure. Anyway. I kind of lost it there. All right, skis. We're so back.
What's up, bitches and whores?
True, yeah. Everybody knows to keep an audience, you have to belittle them.
Yeah.
That's what you come here for, is to be belittled.
Just like emotionally berate your audience.
You fucking animal. You dirty animals.
You fucking dirty animals. All right, y'all. Well, excuse me. It was
a little cough.
Misplaced. My brain's working just fine. So y'all know about the famous 9/11 doer George W. Bush, but do you know about his father? And do you know why you should hate George H.W. Bush?
Are we sure that that's his actual father? Because I was always kind of under the impression that George W. Bush was like a mutant, like reptile that like kind of like wasn't really born, but was like all the sewage in the world like came together and became radioactive and then like birthed him, you know?
Right. Well, yeah, and this is the running story that they have is that he was like created from George H.W. and Barbara, but
that like he was like like an actual human, but again, I don't buy it.
I don't either, to be fair. So George H.W. Bush grew up a rich little prick, coming from a line of investment bankers and railroad tycoons, and he would summer at his grandparents' plantation. So,
wow.
Already just like a real stand-up fucking dude.
Don't like him out of the gate.
Comes from like a honest, like, family with a lot of integrity for sure.
Oh, yeah. Prescott Bush.
Yeah, totally. So Bush had a pretty successful military career, and he was an accomplished pilot fighting in the Pacific Theater during World War II. This was probably the least prissy thing that HW would ever do. So
manly thing.
After leaving the military, George attended Yale, where he joined Delta Kappa Epsilon, and like his father before him, and like his son, George Jr. would be, George Sr. was a Yale cheerleader. Also during his time at Yale, Bush became a part of the Skull and Bones Secret Society, which I texted you about when I was reading about it, and I was like, this is the stupidest shit I've ever
It's so fucking
heard
dorky,
of.
dude.
It's so dorky.
Because they probably, like, I don't know, I feel like it's like, oh, we're part of this secret society, and then you show up and it's like a bunch of dudes in a dorm room with like some Coors Light, you know?
And it's like literally not secret at all. Like it's on the fucking Wikipedia
Everybody
page.
knows about it.
And it's like, hey, this is what this is.
Yeah.
So the Skull and Bones Society is basically the lamest thing ever. It's this club that rich prissy boys from Yale like to pretend is some like dark secret elite club where they do salacious things and like make plans for the world. But in reality, Skull and Bones is just a time for rich kids to hang out and be rich together and, like, network each other for their rich parents. All of the members of this not very secret at all society are given nicknames, and George H.W.'s was Magog, which is a character from the Bible, I guess.
Magog?
I don't know. Again, it could say
Oh my god.
Oh Magog. Also, I can't remember if I mentioned this later, but also his nickname was Skin. I believe. I can't remember if I put it up there later, but yeah, his nickname when he was in the military was Skin.
I don't like that.
No, it's so...
I don't like that at all.
It's really fucking wrong with me.
Yeah.
Hey, Skin. I think it's because he was, like, skinny or something, but I'm like, I can call him Skinny. Why are you calling him
Skinny?
Yeah. Skin?
Yeah,
like, that's
weird.
I don't know. Concept of skin is just creepy in general. Anyhow, so good old Magog. The Skull and Bones Society has several conspiracy theories tied to it. One of them is the Illuminati. One is that they control the CIA, and one is that they are coming together to plot world domination. That last one you could kind of regard as actually true, seeing as the members are all rich elites who own and control corporations that dictate much of the world's economy. As well as, like, several of them have been U.S. presidents or U.S. cabinet members, so they kind of have world domination, but, like, not in a cool movie villain way, and more in, like, a rich kid nepotism way.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, too, is, like, people don't realize with all, like, the conspiracies that, like, most of the time, like, the weird cabal that you're talking about is just rich dudes trying to, like, keep the status quo of, like, rich dudes being rich, you know?
Right.
Like, it's not like they have, like, a set plan to be like, we're going to take over the world. It's like, no, they just want to continue to be rich and control everything, you know?
In essence, like, you kind of do take over the world if you are, like, a rich elite, so.
Yeah, yeah.
So after graduating Yale and moving to Texas, Bush co-founded 2 oil companies using, of course, his family's money, one which was specifically for offshore drilling. So before this man even enters the office, he's, like, literally already an oil tycoon.
Love it.
So again, just, like, continues being a fucking dick for his whole life.
Bro, I just wish that, like, people, like, the person who became the president was just, like, a dude, like, just some guy.
I know, yeah, like why
some person.
It's like literally, which I'll talk about a little bit later. It's like it's always like this fucking dynasty of someone who it's like, oh, his dad was like a railroad and oil tycoon and this and like a huge banker, and then you know, fucking Bush Sr. becomes president, and then Bush Jr. also becomes president after that, who's also just like a rich douche. So it's just, you know.
Like, why can't fucking, like, shit. Steve that works at the 7-Eleven just become president?
Right,
you know? Like,
right. Steve who's, like, always fucking stoned.
Yeah, exactly. We need a fucking stoned president. That's how I feel, too.
We need a stoned American Girl doll.
That as well. Oh, God, yeah.
So during his campaign for Texas Senate, Bush publicly denounced his opponent for supporting the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This act made it illegal to discriminate based on race, gender, religion, and nationality. Bush claimed that his opposition to this act was because it gave the federal government too much power. However, we all know that's just because he is racist.
I was going to say super evil to make sure that, you know, to, like, be like, wow, discrimination is bad.
Yeah, it's like he's just really, like, putting it all out there.
Oh, yeah. And I love it's such a, like, it's such a fucking shallow excuse, you know, like transparent excuse being like the federal government has too much power, and it's like so you want states to have power so that you can be racist. Like, that's exactly what you're saying. Like it's
like this is maybe the one time I'm like actually okay with the federal government like having a lot of power.
Because again, it's one of those things that like the federal government, if you're gonna have one, should do is like
that's
protect
the whole goddamn
people's
point.
Rights and make it illegal to discriminate, you know? Like,
In 1976, Bush was appointed director of the CIA by sitting President Gerald Ford, with whom he had formed a relationship with after serving as the U.S. ambassador to the UN, and then as chairman of the Republican National Convention. Ford, for whatever reason, felt that Bush could repair the CIA's reputation in the wake of the Watergate scandal and the Vietnam War, as Taylor was just telling us about. Which seems crazy to me. Like, why do you think that he's the one?
This fucking guy can do it, yeah. I don't know.
Oh, God. It worked a little bit, mostly due to the fact that the Ford era gave the American people something new to focus on, rather than all the other shit that just barely happened. Yeah. During his time as director of the CIA, Bush oversaw and supported multiple right-wing takeovers of Southern American countries. Operation Condor, which was the official name for this, was essentially a series of organized terrorist attacks on multiple countries throughout South America, leading to tens of thousands of deaths of Southern American people and the continued strife of these countries.
Very cool.
Super cool.
Like I said, you know, for a country that loves democracy so much, we sure love not letting other places have it.
Yeah, we sure love, like, you know, democratically electing right-wing dictators of these countries. Yeah. And by democratically electing, I mean forcing them to be the leader of.
And funding, like, you know, militias that are going to overthrow the ones that are elected that are left-wing.
Exactly.
Very cool.
Yeah, love it. H.W. served as vice president to Ronnie Reagan from 1981 to 1989, supporting Reagan through Reaganomics, which he had heavily criticized during Reagan's campaign, during when they were campaigning against each other. Also, when Bush and Reagan were campaigning against each other, Bush fucking hated the shit out of Reagan. He was like... tore this bitch apart. He literally refused to debate anybody except Reagan.
Shit.
Like, he wouldn't even speak unless it was against Reagan. And he like completely just everything that Reagan wanted, he criticized the shit out of. And then Reagan becomes president and Reagan's like, yeah, be my vice.
I mean, yeah.
It's how it goes.
It's how it goes. Because, like, look at fucking Trump in, like, the most recent one with all the, like, other Republican.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was, like, fucking name-calling every single person on there. And then afterwards, he was like, oh, we're chill. And, like, all the you
guys are my homies.
Yeah, and then all the people were like, yeah, Trump's cool. Like, it's so weird. Like,
exactly.
It's crazy. Also, I was going to say, Reagan nom D's nuts. How about...
We were pointing out the Big Dipper on my little weekend vacation I was just at, and I was like, Big Dipper, more like, why don't you dip these big nuts in her mouth?
Oh, shit.
Right? I thought it was pretty good.
She.
So yeah, then he becomes fucking Reg's vice pres. Also, it was like, you were saying, with Nixon, he kind of was like the first vice president that like actually did shit.
Yeah.
Bush, when he was Reagan's vice president, very much took like a backseat approach because he was like, oh, I don't want to look like I'm trying to like usurp his position or whatever. Yeah. Which then even when Reagan was shot and had to like go to the fucking hospital for a while, Bush refused to like take over office for a sec. He was like, because he really, really didn't want to make it seem like him and Reagan were like beefing or whatever.
Yeah, even though they like were. Like,
yeah, literally.
He was hella jonesing after. Probably was jonesing after Reagan's fucking throat goat of a wife. Like.
Absolutely, he was. You know he was. You know Barbara was like,
that Nancy.
Yep.
Why can't you be like fucking Nancy, Barbara? Like
late night in bed, they're like fucking fighting. So he was vice president through Reaganomics, the Iran-Contra scandal, and the Iran Air Flight 665 scandal, where an American Navy ship had supposedly accidentally shot down an Iranian civilian plane, which killed 290 Iranian civilians. Bush defended the U.S. through this, but strangely enough, though these were points of contention during his campaign in 1988, he still took the election and was appointed president in 1989. So
sick. Also, see our previous episode on the Iran-Contra.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Was that the Chernobyl episode?
I think it was. Yeah. Because we were talking about like governments
being shitty
pieces of shit.
Governments and governing, you know. Governments be governing, I guess.
So during his campaign in 1988 for presidency, he was steadfast about what most Republicans are, which are things like forcing children to repeat the Pledge of Allegiance, and praying in school, the death penalty, gun rights, and of course, fiscal conservatism.
Lovely.
Yes. Once appointed president, Bush organized the invasion of Panama, which was known as, and I believe when they were naming this, they meant it to say Operation Just Cause, as in it was a just cause. However, the way I interpret it is Operation Just Cause.
Yeah.
Just because we felt like it.
That's so funny. There's a video game that's titled that, like Just Cause, and it's like it's a joke in the game because like it's like a Grand Theft Auto-y game where you can like go and do whatever. So it's like Just Cause or like Just Cause, you know? Yeah, very very similar vibe there. Where it's like we haven't fucked over Panama in a while. Let's give them a little. Let's do a little fuckery over there. Like
because just cause.
Just cause.
So basically, what happened there was that the dictator of Panama, Noriega, was supposedly and most likely was involved in drug smuggling. And so because of this, the U.S. sent over forces to Panama in order to, intervene with this, I guess. Because of this, one singular U.S. Marine ended up getting killed by Panamanian forces.
Wow.
And so Bush used this to justify invading Panama, under the pretense of stopping the drug lord dictator, supposedly, and to defend the U.S. military serviceman that was murdered. However, it was really just to invade another country.
They just wanted to invade Panama. Yeah.
Exactly. So this operation led to the death of 23 Americans and led to 394 American soldier injuries. Which it's like, okay, so you're mad because they killed one fucking dude, and then you go and invade, and now it's led to like 23 of your dudes dying, and like almost 400 of your dudes like being severely injured. So that's really good that we did that.
Yeah, very very fun. Revenge is a real good way to do politics.
Always. Interestingly enough, this was the first invasion not related to the Cold War. The first invasion led by the U.S., not related to the Cold War in, like, the last 40 years.
That makes sense, because the big, like, thing changed to, like, the war on drugs. So
yeah,
like,
exactly.
We're not beefing with the Soviet Union anymore, so, like...
Now we can
beef on, quote-unquote drugs, to do whatever we want.
Insert the word drugs anywhere, and you can invade any country you want to.
Exactly.
Following this, we had the Gulf War. So, basic context of this was that Saddam Hussein had control of Iraq, and he tried to invade Kuwait in order to take control of the oil in Kuwait. It was a very oil-rich country. The U.S. intervened, and they dragged along militaries from the UN, leading to the death of 300 American soldiers and multiple casualties from soldiers of other armies within the UN, and then ultimately just leaving Saddam Hussein in control of Iraq anyway. However, the American soldiers did end up taking control of Kuwait. This move from Bush Sr. shot his approval rating way up, because if there was one thing in the 90s and early 2000s that really got the American people going, it was invading Middle Eastern countries.
It was war crimes, yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing gets me as hard as war crimes. Oof. Like, that's truly how I get it. Like, yeah, like, when I am... Let's say climaxing.
Totally.
It really helps if someone just like whispers like a war crime in my ear, like genocide, or like
Iraqi invasion,
ethnic cleansing, like, and then I'm like,
oh,
yeah, and then
shit.
I bust.
Yeah.
Sorry, that might be disrespectful, but it's, America, war crimes, love it.
Yeah. It's the joke. So.
It's the joke.
So as I said, the U.S. took control of Kuwait, having all that access to that sweet oil,
lovely oil,
rather than like, just I guess letting Hussein take it, or maybe, I don't know, letting Kuwait have control of their own
Kuwaiti
country.
People like controlling their own resources.
Yeah.
That, I mean, that's way too crazy, actually, because that would require us not having something, and that seems like it's unfair to us, actually.
No, and it is.
We deserve everything.
All the oil, every last
drop, yeah.
Because of this basically is what contributed to, this is basically what started the, like, beefing of America with Iraq, and, like, the painting of, Iraq as this, like, country that's trying to fucking kill us all the time. Which, slight side tangent, and take it all with a grain of salt, but one day before podcasting, I was picking up a vape from my local vape shop, and there was a guy that worked there who was from Iraq, and he was talking about like being from Iraq and how fucking America has this picture of Iraq in our heads, and he was like, Saddam Hussein literally not nearly as bad, or not Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
He's like, bin Laden was not nearly as bad as like America painted him out to be. Like, Saddam, not bad. Saddam
bad
was
guy,
very bad.
for sure.
Bin Laden was just like, he's like, basically all bin Laden did was like hide the whole time.
Yeah.
He didn't really do shit, but because of this beef we started with Hussein and Iraq, then like when the new guy came in power, we were like, oh, he sucks too.
We gotta do
stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So, because of the U.S. invasion of Kuwait, of course, this left a bad taste for the U.S. in Saddam's mouth, and then that transferred over to Osama bin Laden having a bit of a bad taste for America in his mouth because of our, like, takeover of this country that, they were essentially trying to take over. So, when Bush Jr. takes over, he basically had to kind of finish what his father had started, because Bush Sr. had like fucked up all this shit in the Middle East, specifically Iraq. And so he had to, like, in my opinion, orchestrate something in order to then invade Iraq more. Yeah. So we kind of have George H.W. to thank for the fucking Iraq war.
Very good. Yeah. That's another thing you can whisper in my ear is like Desert Storm.
Yeah.
And then like, it's like, ooh.
Fucking Desert Storm. So there you go. George Sr. eventually died from Parkinson's. Of course, his son took over. Jeb tried to, but that never happened.
Good old Jeb.
But yeah, the good old George Sr. starting the dynasty of Bushes.
as the presidents.
Fucking up America.
Yeah. Also, this doesn't really have anything to do with anything, but Jeb is such a stupid name. I think Jeb's the dumbest name.
It's the dumbest fucking name ever.
Yeah.
Jeb is by far the worst, but he had George W., of course, who then became president.
Yeah.
Jeb, Dorothy, Pauline, Neil, and Marvin, which also I think the name Neil's kind of shitty as well. Sorry to the Neils.
Basic, yeah.
Yeah. Just like Neil.
Yeah.
Jeb is. That's really the worst crime of all that HW ever committed.
Naming his kid Jeb.
Yeah.
Facts. Yeah, wow.
So,
shitty guys.
That is why you should hate George H.W. Bush.
And Richard Nixon.
Richie
Nix. Dick Nix.
Tricky Dick.
Tricky Dick. Yeah. George H. I guess they say George W.
George W.
So, like,
I think George W. was,
Yeah.
Mr. 9/11. George, I don't even know that George Sr., I guess.
Yeah, George H. Bush, I guess, how you can say it. But
George H. Bush.
Or George, yeah. Well, I guess they say, you could say George Bush and then George W. Bush. Is
True,
like some people
I think
do
that's
it.
what they do.
I mean, yeah.
Shit gets confusing, though.
Bush
Again,
killed JFK.
Too many fucking Bushes.
Way too many.
I don't need them, I don't want them.
Yeah, hate them.
Hate them.
Can't stand it. Yeah, so, good stuff.
Lovely stuff.
Glad, 2 more people onto the list of people we've incited violence against.
Absolutely.
I guess George H. Bush is dead. So is Richard Nixon. But
true.
You can burn pictures of him just for fun.
Yeah.
And I think that everybody should.
You should.
Do a campfire and just throw a big portrait of George Bush Sr.
Yeah.
on the fire. And,
dance around it.
Pray to your satanic gods.
Mm-hmm.
And then, dance around it, and it preferably be naked while you're dancing around it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And you can incite violence against George Jr.
Exactly.
So.
You can still get revenge.
Absolutely. Also, did you see that whole thing of where, for whatever fucking reason, George Jr. felt the need to comment on, like, the Ukraine situation.
Yeah.
And he fucked up and said invading Iraq. And was like, Ukraine.
Real Freudian slip there, George.
Jesus fucking Christ, bro.
Yeah, it's actually insane. However, you know what's not insane is our plugs.
They're insanely good.
Insanely sick, actually.
You can insanely follow us on Instagram at Remarks Podcast and on our TikTok of the same handle. Taylor.
You can tweet at us at RemarksPod on Twitter.com. Can leave us a
sweet, juicy
review on Apple Podcasts, and you can check out my YouTube channel called The Lefty Agenda.
Woo.
And a big shout out to our patrons. We have Justin Vass.
We have Andrew Vass.
We have Emily Doran.
And we have... Oh, fuck, guys. I'm so sorry. I got messed up on the list. I was going to say Justin again. We have Teresa Soltero.
Exactly. Beautiful.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, you. We love you.
You the best.
Okay. Love you. Bye.